Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Senior Congress leader Ghulam Nabi Azad resigned from all party positions today. But his exit will possibly not do as much damage to the party as will his stinging resignation letter. In a 5-page long letter to the Congress interim president Sonia Gandhi, he said the Congress has lost both the will and the ability under tutelage of the coterie that runs the AICC to fight for what is right for India. He credits Sonia Gandhi for playing a stellar role during UPA 1 and 2 because she trusted leaders and delegated powers to them. But he adds, unfortunately, after the entry of Rahul Gandhi when he was appointed VP, the entire consultative mechanism was demolished. He also called Rahul immature and childish. He adds, none of the recommendations of the party conclave since the turn of the millennium have been implemented, even after the defeat in 2014 Lok Sabha elections. The letter has left the party embarrassed, but will it really trigger any introspection? Because this has happened before. This is an yearly saga for the Congress party. The reactions today also don't seem to indicate that there will be any change. A conversation with former Union Minister and another leader who dumped the Gandhis, Ashwini Kumar, is coming up shortly. But before that, let us break down how several leaders who have left the Grand Old Party have highlighted the same reasons for doing so. Every time this happens, whether it's a young gun or a veteran, the refrain is the same. They are fed up with the leadership of the Gandhis, particularly Rahul, and sick of the sycophancy and the coterie around him. So Ghulam Nabi Azad has said, for 8 years, party foisted a non-serious person at helm. A few months ago, Kapil Sibal had said, the leadership is in cuckoo land. Some want Ghar Ki Congress. Hardik Patel, new leader, came and left. Focus was on getting chicken sandwich for Delhi leaders. Remember, this is similar to what Himanta Biswa Sarma had said. Rahul was busy feeding his dog instead of discussing key issues when he was meeting him. And recently, Jaiveer Shergill, a national spokesperson, also quit the party. He said that he tried to meet Rahul for a year, but was not welcomed in his office. But every time someone leaves, whether young or old, the explanations or the excuses from the Congress also remain the same. Look at how Congress responded to Azad's letter today. For example, when Azad says that there is a new coterie of inexperienced sycophants running the party, Ashok Gehlot said that Azad was a sycophant himself during Sanjay Gandhi's time. Ghulam Nabi Azad said that when the G23 flagged off the drift, the coterie attacked us. Jairam Ramesh today says that Ghulam Nabi Azad's DNA has been modified. Azad said party foisted a non-serious person, as I mentioned, for 8 years at the helm. Jairam's response has been that Modi's tears, Padma Bhushan and exit shows that there is a nexus with the BJP. All of this is playing out despite the fact that electoral writing is on the wall for the Congress party. They've been losing election after election over the last 8 years. 2 Lok Sabha elections lost badly. 50 assembly elections have taken place. They've lost 41 of them. They've been reduced to ruling only 2 states, that is Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh. They've also been dumped or at least given a cold shoulder in many other cases by their allies as well, to their junior partners in Jharkhand and Bihar. It's quite clear the battle lines within the party are hard and clear. In this scenario, is the Congress heading for a split, or will it continue to lose leaders in dribs and drabs? We will take that to our guests in just a bit, but first up, as I promised, listen in to former Congress veteran, former Union Minister with the UPA, Ashwini Kumar, on Azad's exit. We've heard several reactions since the news broke of Ghulam Nabi Azad's resignation and also the very stinging letter he's written. Your first response to what you've seen of that letter?
Well, I'm sad that things have come to this, but this was only to be expected. One after the other, senior leaders who have been feeling humiliated, insulted, not wanted in the party, have chosen to break ranks. And after years of dedicated service, Ghulam Nabi Azad is the latest in that edition. And I think that his letter speaks of his pain. He speaks of specific reasons that have propelled that decision. And I think nothing more can be added to it, except to say that this spells bad news, as bad as it can be, not only for the Congress party, but also for the strength of the opposition in the country, because the weakening of the Congress certainly weakens the opposition as well. But the challenge for the present leadership of the Congress is to look inwards, not only in terms of words of appeasement and placating leaders, but for concrete action that would be seen generally by the people of India as genuine attempts for the renewal of the Congress party. That is not forthcoming, that is not visible, at least for the moment. Only time will tell what happens next.
The response we get from the Congress party every time a leader leaves also is that, good riddance, that they're happy to get rid of the dead wood because they believe these people did not have the stomach for a fight.
Well, that is the most unfortunate part of the Congress way of doing things at the moment. Instead of looking inwards and asking themselves why people who have stood with the party through thick and thin, right for the last 50 years, are now leaving the Congress party. This is the tragedy of the Congress party, that instead of looking inwards, trying to correct its own mistakes and errors of judgment, it is finding fault with those who, out of a sense of conscience and out of a sense of respect for their own dignity, are now choosing not to suffer humiliation anymore. I think the basic minimum that every citizen is entitled to is to retain his own sense of dignity. And I think Ghulam Nabi Azad has done well and redeemed himself.
Sir, why are things going so horribly wrong from what you're saying in the Congress party?
Well, many things have gone horribly wrong. Some of them have been elucidated by Ghulam Nabi Azad. Others, like me, have chosen to speak through silence. But I had stated that I no longer felt possible to serve the larger causes of the nation as a member of the Congress party, because as it presently functions, it does not give us a sense of dignity. And people who are diminished by a loss of their own dignity cannot rise in the estimation of the people and cannot serve a public function. That's the essence of the grievance of senior Congress people.
Is this because of Rahul Gandhi, his coterie and his leadership style?
Well, I don't really want to comment on individuals. The thing speaks for itself. The letter of resignation of Ghulam Nabi Azad and of many others speak for themselves. I think the message is loud and clear. The writing is on the wall. Everybody knows when the decline of the Congress party started, why it started, and why we are unable to arrest that decline. I don't think anything is left in doubt, nor is there much scope for elaboration after this letter of resignation of Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad.
Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad also said in a very dire statement that Congress has reached a point of no return. Do you see hope? There is an election coming up soon, or do you feel that the more things change, the more they will remain the same?
Well, there's no such thing as an election. I mean, that's clearly a non-issue in the Congress party now for so many years. The writ of the Gandhi family will run supreme, and that will be reflected in whatever is being termed as an election. But as for writing the epitaph of the Congress, no. I have never been hopeless about any party. I think all parties go down and then they come up, provided there's a will to resurrect oneself. Does the Congress do anything right from now on or not is the question. And if it does remove the inadequacies that has plagued it in the past or correct its functioning, certainly Congress has a future.
So what are those things? What are those corrections? What are those wrongs that need to be righted? If you could give me some specifics on that.
Well, first of all, you have to jodo the Congress before you jodo the country. If people one after the other are leaving, call them, talk to them, make amends, tell them we were wrong, we will now correct ourselves, have a serious introspection followed by concrete action. We have had several introspections, and the results of those introspections have largely been confined to the dustbin of history. Now that cannot be so. People of India are the ultimate judge. Congress party and its leadership should be looking to what the people of India expect of it. Okay. And that is the more important part. And when people fall behind the Congress leadership, you will see that support reflected in electoral victories for the Congress. That is not happening now, which means that the leader of the Congress does not automatically become the leader of the nation. The leader of the nation must be the leader of the Congress. That's the equation that the Congress must discover.
Going across to the guests who are now joining us, Shazia Ilmi of the BJP, Gurdeep Singh Sapal of the Congress Party, Rashid Kidwai, senior journalist and author, knows the Congress Party very well, and Suman C. Raman, political analyst, also joining us on the show. I thank all of you for your time. Gurdeep Singh, I'm of course starting with you. Your own leaders are saying again and again that they don't think that this present Congress can serve the national interest. There's a very serious statement by many of your leaders. Don't you think that's a massive indictment for a political party?
Well, this is being said by only those who are not giving way for the new leadership in the Congress party. They have been in the positions of power for decades and decades. And now when the time is there for generational change, I think they are coming up with these excuses. Issue is, when you were part of the decision-making forums in the party, what was the voice that you raised for the issues that you're raising now? That is the question. Can you please tell me any other party where a group of leaders writes a letter and for 2 years they are cajoled by the party leadership, 2 years they are given various positions, 2 years they are allowed to speak out on various platforms.
But at the same time, for example, Ghulam Nabi Azad says he was humiliated in meetings. He even says in his letter, and I pointed this out at the start of my show, that there have been these Chintan shivers for decades. And despite 2 Lok Sabha losses, no concrete action has been taken. Your last one, what was the resolution?
I was at Udaipur Chintan Shivar. Azad Sahab was also there. I don't think he made these points at Chintan Shivar in Udaipur. We do not know what happened in the last 3 months to
He has talked about even 2003, 2013,
now, please tell me, after Udaipur Chintan Shivar, has party not been on the grounds? Can't you see the agitations that party has been now carrying out on various issues in Delhi, in various states? A full yatra is being planned, a pan-India yatra. The first mass contact program after independence of this level is being planned out. These are all the outcomes of Chintan Shivar at Udaipur. So it is not that the Chintan Shivar decisions are not carried out. Yes, they may not be carried out in full, which is never the case in any party. But Mr. Azad himself has been part of those decision-making forums. My question only is that he was the leader of opposition till last year. Rahul Gandhi came into leadership in 2013. For 13 to 21, Mr. Azad was in various decision-making positions. What was the internal debate that was carried out in the party?
Can I tell you one thing? Sir, can I come in? Yeah. Can I come in? You know, we were speaking to PC Chako also earlier. Since you mentioned that he was leader of opposition, PC Chako said on air to me today that Ghulam Nabi Azad told him that even as I was leader of opposition in one of the houses, I could not get time to meet Rahul Gandhi for a full year. That is what Jaiveer Shergill has said. That they just don't have time. They don't meet us.
Let me respond to various leaders that you have named and just interviewed. Mr. PC Chako himself was the General Secretary in charge of Delhi. During this very regime, he himself, and he see the result of Delhi. So shouldn't PC Chako be responsible for those results?
No, you must hold your party men responsible. Of course, you must hold your party men responsible. But they are saying we don't get time with the leadership, with Rahul Gandhi especially.
No. Rahul Gandhi is not the party president. Party president is Mrs. Sonia Gandhi.
Even with her, they're saying.
Has Mr. Azad not been able to meet Mrs. Sonia Gandhi in the last few months? He has been. We all know it. That's not the question. Question is that here is a group of leaders who by their own admission became leaders in early 20s when the Congress leadership picked them up. And now when a fresh crop of leaders is coming up, these people are not willing to make way. And therein lies the conflict.
Mr. Gurdeep, answer me this. Do you believe that these leaders, as Ghulam Nabi Azad is pointing out, have been shunned? The consultative mechanism has been demolished since Rahul Gandhi took over. Do these leaders, even if they're not position holders and not decision makers, do they have nothing to offer to the Congress party? Do they have no experience to offer? Are you saying they are no good?
No. The case can't be that if I am not part of the consultation, then there is no consultation. I think that is the case being brought out. If same thing happens in Bharatiya Janata Party, where senior leaders are set aside, then it is called a master stroke. In Congress Party, when some similar process is happening,
the problem is, sir, they set their leaders aside. You are not doing it, and your leaders are quitting.
Pardon?
I'm saying the difference is that Congress leaders quit their party, write stinging letters. I don't remember the last time a BJP leader did so.
From Yashwant Sinha to Shatrughan Sinha to Eknath Khadse to Swami Prasad Maurya to Yediyurappa to Keshubai Patel, nobody quit Congress, BJP. No BJP leader has ever quit BJP.
Some of them quit because of ideology and decision. No, some of them quit because of ideology and all. That is fine. You can quit. I don't have a problem. Nobody has a problem. My point is that they are not raising the same questions on the leadership.
I can rattle out names after names of senior leaders of BJP who quit BJP once Mr. Modi came to power. Name after name I can rattle out. So this selective amnesia doesn't work. Issue is when there is a generational change happening, I think Mr. Azad should have supported it. He was a senior leader who has been in the decision-making role for more than 4 decades.
So, sir, explain this generational, before I go across and open this up to our other guests, explain this generational change. Rahul Gandhi has been a power center in the Congress party as president or otherwise since 2013. अभी 10 साल होने को आए हैं. आप बताइए ये generational change चल ही रहा है अभी तक, ये क्या हो रहा है?
Okay. Generational change doesn't include Mr. Bhupesh Baghel. Generational change does not include the young Dalit the CLP leader in Tamil Nadu. Generational change does not include new leadership in Jharkhand, where we are in power. I think we are looking only near the four walls, near the boundary of Lutyens zone and forming our perceptions from that. In state after state, a new leadership of Congress party has come up. It's a fact. It may have succeeded some places, it may not have succeeded some places. But there has been, you see the whole panelist of media person, spokesperson on various channels today. Can't you see a new generation coming up? If we are oblivious to this reality, then I think we are only rattling out something which is being spread out by certain individuals.
The trouble for the Congress though is your election results are not showing. And I don't think people have a problem with the other second run, third run. Your state leaders, you've got great state leaders who can give the BJP a fight. People particularly have a problem with Rahul Gandhi.
Shivani, that can happen in politics. Politics, you sometimes go down, sometimes you come up. Congress party is going back to its root. We are going back to people. We are having a mass agitational program lined up. And issue is what is Rahul Gandhi saying? He has been consistent that today the need is an ideological fight. Everybody else who's not on this side of ideology is not comfortable in fighting that war.
Okay, fair enough. Gurdeep ji, let me open this up to others now. Shazia Ilmi, what do you make of the situation in the Congress party? The larger question I'm wondering about today is if the Congress will continue to lose leaders in dribs and drabs like this, or when a party comes to a situation like this where there's a very clear line and divide over what the direction the party should be taking and both sides are very firm on their view, will that party split? And Congress has split many times in the past. But anyways, your first response to Ghulam Nabi Azad and what Gurdeep ji has said.
Well, the fact of the matter is that this seems to be a never-ending story. The list of complaints is the same. The content of the complaint, so to speak, is the same. So I don't know. It's for the Congress party to really look into it and introspect. But the fact of the matter is, people like Ghulam Nabi Azad have been veterans. When Gurdeep ji talks about the generational change and the new crop of leaders, we were looking at a fairly young crop, which actually was very disenchanted by Rahul Gandhi's leadership as well. If you look at RPN Singh, if you look at a young Jaiveer Shergill, if you look at even other leaders,
Sindhya, Jitin Prasad,
and
Sushmita Dev, Priyanka Chaturvedi,
and Jitin Prasad, and what have you. So it's across the generations. It's nothing to do with a particular generation or an age. It's just the way things are, and something's got to give. And now what it takes for it to give is something that's not happening. And I think we all know what we're talking about. And nobody wants to just act upon it. And it's not, BJP doesn't want it because BJP does not have a stake. You can have a larger stake because of what it means for the BJP if there was to be a fallout of it. But internally, for the Congress leaders, I'm sure, and I speak also as a journalist who has been a journalist for several years, it's really sad that the oldest party is it looks like a sinking ship, and people want to go. Maybe some with very selfish reasons, as I might agree to the preceding speaker, agree with the preceding speaker. But the fact of the matter is that something is not all right, something is amiss, and you're not ready to address it. And that is a problem.
Okay, Rashid Kidwai, is it fair for the Congress leaders? Sir, I'll come back to you. Gurdeep ji, I'll come back to you. Rashid Kidwai, is it fair for the Congress party to keep attacking the individuals who leave them? As if, you know, as if they had positions in the Congress party, then it was some sort of a favor. Well, if you're going to have a party, there will be position holders as well. इसमें बार-बार याद दिलाने वाली क्या बात है कि आप 20 साल तक ये थे, 30 साल तक ये थे, तो उन्होंने काम भी तो किया है ना फिर? Do you think this is the right way or the wrong way?
Absolutely. Shivani, we must remember 2-3 things which are very basic and elementary. The political loyalty is extremely transactional. It is not like religion and faith when there is a kind of unconditional loyalty. So whenever somebody gets an opportunity and an opening from the other side, the greener pastures, you know, they always move. It's a feature of Indian parliamentary democracy. Second thing is when political party goes down, particularly the Congress, that 1967, so it led to a massive split in 1969. Same thing happened in 1977, and same thing happened after 1996 when several breakaway groups of Tiwari Congress and Scindia Congress and Bangarappa Congress and later on Mamata Banerjee Congress and Jagan Mohan Reddy Congress, they were all formed. Very interestingly and intriguingly, no split took place after 2014 or 19. Back to.
All right, I think I've lost him in between there. He was making an interesting point. We'll go back to him. Suman C. Raman, you know, the problem also is that they keep attacking these leaders. And
I think,
and one more thing, you know, the leaders themselves are laughing off even the upcoming elections of the Congress party, where where the hope is that, the party will revive itself, have a new president, a non-Gandhi, etc. They're leaving before this Bharat Jodo Yatra. In some senses, they don't have any faith, even if some measures are being taken.
Yeah, Shivani, first of all, Ghulam Nabi Azad has been, singularly ungrateful. I think that he's, as Mr. Gehlot pointed out today, over a period of 40 years, there has been hardly any significant time frame when he has neither had a senior role either in the party or in the government. So I think it's being extremely, ungracious and, disloyal of Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad to do what he did. But having said that, the elephant in the room is the leadership of the Congress party, is Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Why can't the Congress party, for God's sake, see that that is the fundamental issue? All of them are going out because the Congress High Command is now non-serious, as Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad says it. He simply does not have the will to actually be a politician full-time.
Yes.
A Congress party, a party which has ruled India for the largest portion of its time since independence, cannot have a part-time leader. It is simply not possible. And certainly not when you're taking on a party like the BJP, which is like 24/7 by 365 in an electoral mode. So I think that Mr. Azad has made one very valid point. And I think the most important point that he has made in the letter is about the non-serious leader. Now, whether he should have, said whatever it is, this party has given him almost everything that he is known for today. Okay. All the recognition has come thanks to his proximity and the support that he has received from the Gandhi family. And to do what he is doing today is pure and simple treachery. I don't see any other word for it, but the Congress does have a serious problem, and that serious problem is right Rahul at Gandhi. The top. So the point is, one second, Shivani. The point about these leaders, look, they had a government in Madhya Pradesh. They knew Scindia was unhappy. The leadership simply did not know how to handle it. And in 3 months, it was crystal clear to the whole world, except Rahul Gandhi, that Scindia was going to quit and join the BJP. They weren't able to prevent it. Take Karnataka, which goes to the poll next year. Who is their chief ministerial candidate? They don't know. They are
No, they've said we will go collective leadership because they don't want to upset anybody.
Absolutely. So it won't work. DK Shivkumar needs to be named as a chief ministerial candidate. And without doing that, they will snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, as they have done in so many other places also.
Okay.
What
So
did they do?
basically, nothing succeeds like success. Gurdeep ji, you may point out to leaders who leave the BJP unhappy with Modi, unhappy with ideology, unhappy with the turn the party has taken, etc. The problem is for you that BJP is winning. Congress is not. An answer to what Suman C. Raman said, your central problem continues to be Rahul Gandhi, yet we continue to see a clamour for him to become the next president, even when he himself is saying, I don't want to be. But then even if he is not, he will still be a power center. It's a mess.
Well, there's a different way of looking at things today. Today, coming to winning elections is not only a question of coming to power. After BJP has consolidated itself in this particular run after 2014, it is also about ideology. Rahul Gandhi is not just representing generational change, but also the ideological clarity within the Congress. And today, anybody who wants a secular India, who wants an India that is not divisive, where bigotry is not promoted, stands with Rahul Gandhi. And
sir, they are choosing Mamata Banerjee, they are choosing Arvind Kejriwal, they are choosing your other regional former allies. They are not choosing Rahul Gandhi.
I know Kejriwal who keeps mum in Delhi riots or Bilkis Bano case. He is only pandering to the sentiments which are being promoted by Bharatiya Janata Party and RSS. So I am not getting into that debate. Question is, if you want to save this Atma of India, then in words of Kabir, it's very famous couplet Doha कि कबीरा खड़ा बाजार में लिए लुखाटी हाथ जो घर फूके आप ना चले हमारे साथ. Today joining Congress, today struggling by being in Congress is like by you are ready to give up everything, you are ready to sacrifice everything for the cause of this nation. It's not just about Congress party.
But and sir, the point is that it's not ideology that people have a problem with. There are people who believe in Congress's ideology, but Rahul Gandhi is not a 24/7 politician, not a serious politician. That's the point.
That's only a projection. That's only a defamation created by the IT cell of Bharatiya Janata Party.
Your own leaders say this. Come on, that's not fair. Gurdeep ji, that's not fair. Your own leaders say this. Look, what does the BJP have to do with this?
Pardon?
Your own leaders say this.
The entire image, which is also fortified by the disgruntled elements who leave Congress, has been in first place generated by BJP's IT cell. Anybody who meets Rahul Gandhi will vouch for him that he is not the person who is projected by BJP.
From Himanta Biswa Sarma.
But today...
In 2015 to Ghulam Nabi Azad in 2022.
I'll answer to this. Himanta Biswa Sarma and his bigotry is out in open. The way he has been running this government, it is right that Rahul Gandhi identified him that he is not on the ideological side.
By ignoring
that
him.
Rahul Gandhi wants Congress to represent. Now rest are the stories created by Himanta Biswa Sarma. He may be a very good politician, but he does not represent the same values that Rahul Gandhi wants Congress to carry in this country.
Let Shazia come in. Shazia, all of this is your fault.
As Assam CM,
all of this is your fault.
As Assam CM, he has been not about
bigotry, trying so hard and giving a spin on everything and trying to be clever by half. And even saying that retrospectively, Rahul Gandhi knew what Himanta would be like, which is why he ignored him and treated him badly, because he could foresee as a kind of a clairvoyant that he would become a bigot later. So this is quite hilarious. I mean, and if this is the mode you're in, God help Congress. I mean, that's your loss entirely. I can only speak. I can only empathize with you, but only to some extent, because I do belong to the other party.
We are going to
but I would like to say something else here.
We are going to them.
No, I think it's a lot of balderdash. You hide behind these words. You just hide behind the semantics, ideological clarity. I think it's a lot of bunkum. I think there is zero clarity. And it doesn't take much for any IT cell to see things for what they are. But it is for everybody to see.
Any independent observer knows that there is an ideological divide between what Rahul Gandhi represents and what RSS represents.
It doesn't help.
Any independent
Keep talking, sir.
observer would know
you're so great with forming a sentence here and there. If you think this is what's going to help you, go ahead. Keep yapping, sir. Keep talking. Keep using these great words and trying to give this noble tint and tilt to everything that you're saying. It's not going to help at all. Because everybody knows the truth. It's out there. You can't run away from it. So, you can give it a very cool look and a spin. But the fact of the matter is that truth is out there. It has a way of being seen and heard, even if you try to. Conversely, I can say that the entire media cell of Congress party and in the perception game, the kind of things you try to make Modi ji to be, to be some kind of abomination. And eventually the truth prevailed, right? And we know what is the truth out there. And I can say the same thing. Anybody who meets Modi ji will know what kind of a man he is and how he's talked about. Okay. But the fact is, Rahul Gandhi has been given a chance not once, but thousands of times in the parliament, outside the parliament. And he has yet to prove himself and make a mark. And, it's just one act of immaturity to the other. I'm not saying that others are like that. They would be great leaders. But, you are doing such a great disservice to them by, shortchanging them.
Okay, Rashid Kidwai is back with us. Rashid Kidwai was making such an important point. Once again, I'll come back to both of you. Rashid Kidwai, you were making an important point about the splits that the Congress have seen. Now, that's the larger question I'm also asking. When crises like this happen, Congress has split in the past. Do you believe it is going to split again, or it's going to just, keep wavering, losing leaders in dribs and drabs, keep tottering?
Yeah, that is what, Shivani, is happening. So one time split would have been a huge setback, but this kind of, periodical split by one leader after another is, the Congress is bleeding white. And this is a real kind of crisis because you cannot manage it. You cannot give any spin. But Shivani, for a moment, just think of it away from all these things. There are dozens of political parties in India at national level and state level. Have you come across any political party where a huge number of leaders who were relevant in 1970s, were relevant in 1980s, in 1990s, in the first part of the millennium, and now? I can go on so many names. It's not just one Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad. There is Ashok Gehlot, Kamal Nath, Ambika Soni, so many things. And of course, some of those people have unfortunately lost their lives. So now I don't want to mention them. But this relevance of the, that leadership factory that Sanjay Gandhi had produced is still in force in the Congress party. Digvijay is saying that so many people are there. Okay. I look at the backbone of the Congress. It dates back to, to 1970. That's not the case with the BJP. Now, look at that. You can count the number of people who are there from the, Atal Bihari Vajpayee regime of 1998 to 2003.
No, but sir, the problem is different parties can have different models. The BJP can easily argue that they are a cadre-based party. People rise from the cadre. They work for years in organization. They come to positions and they get rewarded. In Congress, the problem is your loyalty is the fact that determines how close you are or how high you are, not your performance.
The point I'm making is very simple. Point is that, this kind of, the status quoist and who've been existed and held, prominence for 50 years, they surpassed, your age group, Shazia's age group. Now imagine in a political party, what kind of work culture, what kind of ethics, what kind of hierarchy will be there. Just ponder over it. I'm not saying that, what Congress is doing is right. Of course, the, electoral success or lack of it explains everything.
But do you not believe some change is needed? For example, Suman Sri Raman, even their next elections are being laughed off. I find that problematic. Everybody is saying that, these are not going to be elections. It's a sham. That's the problem for the Congress.
Look, first of all, let us be very clear. And I think this is a question which I will pose to the Congress spokesperson here. Does he not believe that his party deserves a full-time leader? I mean, come on, this is the grand old party of India. How can you run it on a part-time basis? In Parliament, the Union Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, gives a statement saying that the gentleman, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, has made over 1,000 visits abroad. And that is not even challenged by the Congress. If he was lying in Parliament, why did the Congress not launch an agitation and ask him to retract his statement? 1,000 visits in 7 years or 6 years. I mean, that translates, and I think it translated into one visit every 9 days or something. So how is it possible for anyone who hopes to lead a large political party in a country like India to simply do it when you're not even there.
Okay, let Gurdeep ji answer that for 30 seconds
because
I'm running out of time.
Let me finish the point.
Okay, let Sumant finish, then you come in. Yeah.
Let me outrightly reject this data. 1,000 visits in 2,000 days. 6 to 7 years, 2,000 days. So do you believe this? This cannot? That Rahul Gandhi has traveled 1,000 days in 2,000 days? This is just a canard being spread.
Did you challenge
leader,
it, sir?
Please let me complete. B, Congress party does have a full-time president. Mrs. Sonia Gandhi in last CWC last year made it very clear, and election process is on. A person who has quit the party today, if he says that election process is a sham, that does not discredit the election process. It's by itself. We have a schedule. 28th.
Two people today told me this. Ashwini Kumar, who you heard, Sanjay Jha, also former Congress party, suspended, said the same thing.
They're not part of Congress.
No, they're not. They're not. But they're saying कि इलेक्शन हो रहे हैं, लेकिन हवा ये चल रही है कि अशोक गहलोत को बोला कि आप टेक ओवर कर लो. इसका क्या मतलब बनता है? फिर तो इलेक्टेड है ना, सिलेक्टेड है.
Tell me who brought in JP Nadda or Jana Krishnamurthy or so many leaders who brought in BJP?
अरे सर, बीजेपी की प्रॉब्लम बीजेपी की प्रॉब्लम है. बीजेपी की प्रॉब्लम बीजेपी की प्रॉब्लम है. आप क्यों कंपेयर कर रहे हैं अपना आपको बीजेपी से?
Please tell me. Please tell me.
Shivani, 1 minute.
I'll come to you, Sumant. I'll come to you.
और Jana Krishnamurthy और Amit Shah और Rajnath Singh.
Their system works for them. Your system is not working anymore, sir. आप बीजेपी को देखते रहोगे तो अपना घर कैसे सुधारोगे?
हम आप ये बताना चाह रहे हैं कि as if all other parties have an election in which all the cadres
मैं तो नहीं कह रही हूँ ये. But people don't revolt in other parties like they're revolting in the Congress. All right, Sumant, 30 seconds. I'm running out of time. Final 20 seconds to all of our guests. Sumant.
Mr. Gurdeep, between 2015 and 2019, 4 years, Rahul Gandhi traveled abroad 247 times, an average of 62 trips in a year, which amounts to 5 trips a month. The data was provided by Home Minister Amit Shah when discussing special section.
Let me refute that also. From 1,000 to 247. So you are saying he's traveling once every week?
Okay.
No.
Okay, I have to move on from this. The non-serious question has been answered by Gurdeep ji. It is what it is as it stands. Rashid Kidwai, is any change needed? You talked about a structure. You said what else can the Congress do? Is any change needed? Will any change happen? Rashid Kidwai.
Let me respond to this.
Shivani, you look at that, you look at that tone and tenor. If Ashok Gehlot, comes in as a probability, he's being dubbed as a, Nehru Gandhi family nominee. So that's the thing. I think it's nothing to do who heads the Congress. Unless the Congress starts winning elections, it will continue to draw flag. Perhaps Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad felt slighted that Ashok Gehlot is being considered, whereas in the kind of party hierarchy and in the past, he had been senior to Ashok Gehlot. So all these considerations are there. I have said political loyalty is highly transactional, and anybody who's getting a chance from the other side is lapping it up.
Okay, I have to leave it at that. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. And let me also now throw over to this conversation I had with Sanjay Jha. I mentioned him, the former Congress leader, now suspended, who was equally scathing on Rahul Gandhi and the Congress culture.
You can't be living in you can't be delusional about Congress's problems. I mean, I look at politics from a very simple angle. Who's winning? Or if you're losing, how are you fighting back? It's simple. You're not winning and you're not fighting back. So that's the problem for the Congress party. All these veterans who are leaving, what does it tell you, right? It tells you that they are not optimistic anymore. They're not hopeful anymore. They don't have sanguine expectations of the party's future, which is so sad because the Congress is part of India's historic freedom struggle. Yes. It's been in government for 55 years. And for the last 10 years, it's been on its own internal implosion. And nothing is being done to arrest it. And I think, let me give you just one example, right? Yesterday, Jaiveer Shergill quit. I know him. Jaiveer is a young guy, bright, dynamic. And Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad on the other side of the, if you call it as the age spectrum, he's quit too. And both of them have said something very similar. And that to me is symptomatic of the larger problem within the Congress. In simple words, leadership needs to communicate and engage, especially with dissidents. But if you are going to have political entrepreneurs around you Many of the people around the party leadership are those who are so self-seeking people. They have no political impulse. They basically are there because they are creating their own future. They have their own private agendas. They have misled Rahul Gandhi. The question is that Rahul Gandhi has to be smart enough to not be misled. I mean, that is the whole challenge.
You said Rahul Gandhi needs to be smarter to not be controlled by these entrepreneurs around him. But the same issue has been raised multiple times. Two things. One, he's a non-serious politician, so you can't always depend on him. The Congress leadership itself cannot always depend on him. He comes and goes. You know, his foreign trips are often talked about. So not a 24/7 politician. That is one thing. Always a consistent criticism of him. The second is that he's being controlled by this coterie. Now, if it's been nearly 10 years and you haven't been able to get out of that, you haven't been able to grow out of that, what's the answer then? The answer, should it not be to look beyond Rahul Gandhi?
Well, you know, I have a very simple thumb rule based on my corporate and political experience. If you find the kitchen too hot, step out of it. Simple. And leadership is not everybody's cup of tea or coffee. It's a tough job. You got to firstly know what you're saying. You got to be a great communicator, hopefully bilingual. You got to lead a team of people whom you trust. You also got to listen to people whom you don't possibly like, you know, but they are part of the team. You can't ignore them. Then you got to have strategy. You got to know how to raise funds. You got to know how to understand your data. You also got to know how to campaign and travel all over the country. It's a tough job. And therefore, I believe, you know, leadership is an exceptional challenge. And if Rahul is not measuring up to it, I have always said it, and I say so despite the fact that I like him personally enormously, that Rahul should have just taken a break from leadership. I hope he does even in the September election, and let a Sachin Pilot and a Priyanka Gandhi combination lead the Congress.
You know, the worst thing is that this Azad resignation, Jaiveer leaving, is coming even as we're all looking forward to that election within the Congress party for the next president. So they're not even waiting for that process to get over. It just goes on to show that they have no hope.
Well, let me tell you, how does this sound when media reports tell you that Mrs. Gandhi has said to Mr. Gehlot, please take over? How does it sound? That there is an election on and there is a report that says that Mr. Gehlot has been asked to take over. Yes. So is this entire election a sham or what? I mean, that is the problem. Yes. I believe that today, if we had a presidential system and, you know, people could fight for Congress president, I think a Manish, a Sachin Pilot, a Shashi Tharoor, I'll be very honest, I would have put my hat in the ring as well. Well, you put an ideology, you put your philosophy, you tell what you're going to do if you become the president of the party and pitch for it. But unfortunately, we can't do that. None of us, unfortunately, can do it on our own. I tell you what, I'll be very honest, I haven't said it to any TV channel. If I wasn't suspended, and I would have loved to throw my hat in the ring, if nothing else, to tell people that there is an alternate philosophy. And I'm not dynastic. I have no corruption charges against me. I pay all my taxes on time. And I'm a very passionate believer in Congress's ideology. I'm sure there are many people like me in the Congress who would love to say, well, you know, why don't I fight? Yeah. But this is the problem. This is the problem. And the Congress has to figure out an answer.
It is a problem that the principal opposition party in the country to the BJP is just disintegrating month after month, if not day after day. That is the problem for everybody. And the media also often talks about it, because if the Congress keeps disintegrating like this, doesn't put up a front, a cohesive front, alone or otherwise, with other parties to the BJP, it is a problem for our democracy.
Yeah, it is. And can I answer you, or I'll tell you something else. I believe one of the reasons why Rahul Gandhi has struggled to resurrect the Congress is because he just doesn't engage with the media. You know, I'm being very frank with you. I have said it in internal conversations. You can't be the leader of a party and call it Godi media. You know what? Media will have views. Some will be ideologically left of center, right of center. I can understand that. But, you know, as a leader, you have a platform. I mean, I could have said, you know, I'm not going to go on CNN because I've got something else to do. But because I'm speaking with you, whether people agree or they don't agree with me, at least they're hearing my viewpoint. And I always believe that Rahul Gandhi, if he were to engage with everyone, an NDTV, a CNN, a Times Now, an Aaj Tak, an ABP, India Today, NewsX, engage with people. People hear you. That's what politics is all about. You know, Democrats go to Fox News and Republicans go to CNN and MSNBC. But that politics is about engagement.
Yeah, fight for your ideology, right? You cannot expect it will be smooth sailing. You'll have to fight for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me tell you something. I feel that the media has got every right to question the Congress for being so sloppy in a fight back. I mean, I always believe that the government is going to get away with murder. The BJP is having a walk in the park because the Congress has made it easy. Simple.
Do you believe the Congress will finally move on in a way that actually, enthuses them and brings some fresh energy? Or is it going to be more of the same?
Well, I hope not. I mean, there is a saying that, as a banker, I remember we used to talk about it, too big to fail. Organizations believe they're too big to fail. And I think the Congress has got itself into this hallucination that we are too old, great, and big to fail. I think you're making a fundamental mistake. Let me tell you, politics is fluid. Organizations vanish. It's happened. I'll give you an example of the French elections. Emmanuel Macron became a president in a party that was created 3 years ago before he became president. And the grand socialist and the right conservatives, they are obliterated today in France. So things can change. Aam Aadmi Party is a threat for the Congress. TMC is a threat for the Congress. And the BJP always has remained a formidable challenge. So you can't take it for granted that people are going to vote for you all the time. They need to see a leader. They need to see passion. They need to see a fight back. The party has been very sporadic. It's done some good work. It just is not consistent. And you know what? Let me tell you the truth, because in television, you know it, and I, as a spokesperson, have been aware of it for a long time. Elections have always been quasi-presidential. It's never just parliamentary. You always like to know who's a leader. Mrs. Gandhi made it presidential. She was part of the Congress. So we can't blame Narendra Modi for making it extremely, self-styled, individualistic politics. It's a nature of the beast. People want to know, Mera Pradhan Mantri kaun banne wala hai? So you tell them who it's going to be. A party or a company or a country becomes like its leader. If you look at the BJP and the Congress, you'll feel the difference. Mr. Modi is ambitious, hungry, a very aggressive communicator. Look at the BJP today, from the spokesperson down to the workers. They are always on the prowl. Yeah. Look at the Congress. Mr. Gandhi doesn't communicate. He's conservative. He speaks very sporadically. The Congress is becoming a little old-fashioned. It's not looking very savvy with the times. So the Congress has become, to a great extent, like his leadership. Cocooned, not vibrant, not communicating, not available for conversations, and somewhere down the line, as a result, self-destructing in slow motion.